You guys, thank you for tuning in to the Self Selecting Podcast. I am your host, Corey Hagman, and we are joined with Stephanie today, who I didn't realize how far along you are in your pregnancy. That's incredible. I mean, like, when is your due date?
It is April 30th, so
Oh my
almost
gosh.
like a month away. So we're almost there.
That's huge. That's huge. And I mean, like, as you already mentioned, like things have been running really smoothly. But for listeners who aren't familiar with you, which is like truly, you've coveted like really this following that I mean like I see them commenting, I see them like the community that you've built. They love you so much, but to be able to have that, especially as you've evolved over the years and gone into different aspects of fitness, it's just so incredible. But I guess for listeners who aren't familiar with your content, or who you are, could you tell them a little bit about, yeah, who is Stephanie?
Of course. So I'm Stephanie. I'm a bikini competitor. Well, retire might come back soon enough. We'll see what happens. I pretty much built my page, my Instagram, and everything through just competing and just the fitness world. I've always loved fitness, and just whenever I found about bodybuilding, I just kind of fell in love with it. I'm like, ooh, it has a little bit of modeling into it, and it has like the fitness aspect of it. And got my pro card back in 2015, and then from there, like I actually, even before then, my first show, I fell in love with it, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be me. This is what we're gonna do. And after that, it just became, I don't know, it just became part of my identity, I would say. And I just wanted to continue on and get better and better, and just kind of like let go of like a lot of issues, like not issues, but I would say like insecurities that I had back then, in terms of like, oh, I'm a little bit weak, or I'm a little bit, this and that. And with bodybuilding, it just allowed me to just grow, mentally and physically, mostly mentally, I would say. And for those that had followed me, I guess for those that have followed me throughout my journey, they would know that, like, it's all about my patient's been all about mental fortitude and just growing through that. And but yeah.
No, no, it's incredible. And like, I mean, like, I've been a fan of your content because I think like you do something within the space that it can be hard for women to do. And I applaud you for this, is like you showcase your physique. No matter if you're 100%, no matter if you're injured, at points in which many, like, I mean, many people, they tend to feel like, okay, I have this persona or this image to uphold, whereas like a lot of people, they do tend to like withdraw if they're, let's say, not at their leanest. And something I've always admired about you is that like you have an incredible physique, like you look amazing, and the fact that you're having a baby, and like it's just it's amazing just to be kind of a spectator to seeing like the physique changes, given that like in the sport that we're talking about, like there's so much emphasis on maintaining that perfect body image. And I just feel like you do such a good job displaying still something that is so impressive and unattainable for many. But you also tap into, what that looks like intrinsically. So I kind of want to go back because you mentioned this a little bit. It's like when you were competing, you said it like it allowed you to further develop yourself mentally. So intrinsically, what were some of those challenges that you personally faced?
I mean, honestly, like I feel like with bodybuilding, we all kind of go through like different challenges. I would say mine, and it's funny how you mentioned it's like, oh, you kind of like show a little bit of everything. And even during those times, like, like, I mean, I even branded myself as the ab chick, which, it was hard at times, especially like once I stopped competing and I started gaining a bit of weight. And like I was like, oh my God, if I don't have abs, like like people are gonna stop on like they're gonna unfollow me, and they're not gonna want to follow me, and this and that. And I've even noticed that even like in my, how do I say it? Um, During the time that I was competing, I was kind of still like, oh, I need to make sure I kind of keep this perfect physique, and just, be perfect and have the perfect diet and have the perfect training. And I would kind of beat myself up about it at times. But I always showcased everything, my lows and my highs. And I think that just talking about it helped me out so much throughout that time. Um, so does that answer your question? I'm sorry if you want to repeat it again.
Yes. No, no, no. That was, no, that's incredible. And I can definitely relate to a lot of what you're describing, specifically with like abdominal visibility, like ab definition, because I very much felt like in my early stages of like fitness, like, okay, maybe I wasn't the densest or like I didn't have the perfect balance, but like I did feel like my abs were like a really like good asset to my physique. So I remember like when I first started following you, I was like, yo, like she's got this like turtle shell, like six pack. And it seemed like, and this is like true to the entire time that I followed you. I feel like even at your heaviest, you carry your weight so impressively well that you still resemble and you still like look incredibly fit, which oftentimes I think for people they assume that like, okay, if this is someone's peak off season or non-competition physique, then it has to be sloppy or it has to look like a completely different person. And that's always something that like I know the different challenges you've gone through, like some have been times where you've just like taken away a little bit of time from dieting or you've been forced to with injuries. So it's just been amazing to see that because with such a big platform, I feel like there almost is more pressure for you to like be representing what is it like to be a bikini pro and like what does this look like day in and day out, including how does that physique fluctuate. And the thing that I find a lot of amateurs and a lot of clients I work with struggle with is thinking that even when they're off stage, they're still in competition. They're still in competition to maintain something that resembles that stage look.
Mhm. Nope, and I totally agree with that. And it is hard, especially when you are in that space and just kind of seeing everybody else. But, and as you probably know, because you've probably spoken to so many different competitors and everything, like, they look great on stage and then they kind of like back away and they don't want to show anything else. And they're like, oh, like they hide behind, they hide behind like their social media and they only post like pictures from like the past and stage ready and I thought and it's funny because when you actually meet them in person you're like they're perfectly fine, they still look amazing, but in their heads they're like, oh my god, like I look awful, like don't take a picture of me, don't look at me, like don't and you can see their insecurities behind it, and I feel like that's what really like helped me in a way because I was like, well, I don't want to be like that. I want to be sure, I want to be a role model where I can be and just show people that like, you can still, be athletic. You still can be an, an athlete. You still be a competitor, even if you have a little bit more fluff in you. And a lot of the times also came down to just kind of having like that healthier lifestyle and not just being all in and all out, which I feel like a lot of people just kind of do, especially after a show when, we have all seen it. You go backstage and it's all the cookies and all like just everything and it just kind of like falls off and then people just kind of like become really insecure. And I've seen so many beautiful girls that like have amazing physiques even their off season. They're like, oh my god, look at this, look at that, and I'm like, no, 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 you look amazing. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you look amazing. Like, you're the 1% still. So
Yes. I just appreciate that so much because something that has allowed me to, I would say, not necessarily love that physique just as much, but come to appreciate it in different ways, has been being very strict around like how am I talking to myself and like when I'm doing these physique checks, what is the intention here? And I just recorded an episode yesterday for Patreon where I was going into like if you were like doing physique checks, like, yes, like that's a part of our sport. And like you do have some responsibility to continue that. Otherwise, we probably like wouldn't do that well. But realistically, like you have to be able to police it in a way that's like, is this just being critical in a negative way? Is this almost being like self indulgent to an extent that like you're just finding everything that's wrong with you? And realistically, it's like, who is to say that something actually is? Because when you're in that mindset, it can be I think really heavy and really hard to pull yourself out and like consider the fact like if you're in a fat loss phase not getting on stage today or tomorrow, it's like you shouldn't actually be stage lean. And even if you're close to a show, it's like there's still some ability to perfect that final look, but walking around like that is going to be very unsustainable for so many people. But then on top of that, it's like there are real consequences to trying to hold on to that kind of physique.
mhm. No, and absolutely. And I kind of want, I love your physique. You have such an amazing physique. And it's crazy because what I notice on you is like, it's like whenever you're stage lean, I'm like amazing. But whenever you post your off-season pictures, I'm always like, wow, like look how much improvement she's made. Like just from like point A to point B. And that's her off-season body. Like it looks, you can tell all the little details and everything that you've put so much work behind to get to where you're at now. And I'm like, that's amazing. If she can do it, anyone can do it. Like, so.
Thank you. Steph, you're no, you're very, it's very sweet of you. And I can say like getting to the weight I did last year, I peaked at like 152, which I'm about 5'4". So like seeing that on my physique, I'm like, I'd been 152 one time in my life before. I think it was 2017, 2018, but it was not a good 152. It was very soft and like very representative of how I was eating and how, and realistically, how indulgent I was being, which is okay. Like there are times for that. But even last year when I was going through a build, like that was something I wanted to really share with people. I wanted to make sure that they knew, like, even if this physique appears like really comfortable and really healthy mid off season, I've competed at 120, I've competed at 117. So being 152 pounds, like textbook, that's breaking like a lot of top coaches' rules about this, like 5 to 10 pounds away from stage weight. And I know when I started posting those physique updates and those pictures, like people are like, wow, like, are you, exactly what you said, are you getting on stage anytime soon? I'm like, no, like I'm actually moving in the opposite direction. And very, very similar to you, is more so with the intention of like, I want clients to see that like, yes, I have cellulite at 145 pounds and 150 pounds. And like, and that's okay. Like, I wish I didn't, but it is what it is. You know, this is how my body looks at these different weights. And like, doing what I'm doing now is in line with building a better physique to stage. It's not just something I can continue to like diet down and diet towards. So thank you. Thank you so much. You're just the sweetest.
No, but no, and to add on to like, being stage lean for so long, I made that mistake and I paid for it too. So back in 2019, I did pretty well during that season. I started getting like top five. I was very happy with the way that my body was progressing. And I believe I started that prep maybe like in March of 2019 or something. And then from then on, I just kind of kept going. And then 2020 came, I think I took maybe like a month or two off, which, you don't really come off in 2 months. You just kind of, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be ready for 2020. Like, this is going to be my year. Like, we're going to make it to the Olympia. It's going to be fantastic. And, COVID happened and everything just started shutting down. And all those shows that I was planning on doing kept getting like held back. And I was like, oh no. So not only did I not have, a proper gym, I had built my whole home gym at home, but it's not the same. Um, and I was dieting still. And I was like, okay, maybe they'll open up the next one. Nope. Maybe they'll open up the next one. So the whole year I pretty much spent also dieting. So I had all 2019, all 2020, never got my time of the month. And then I think it was like July was my first show or something like that. So, and I didn't finish until, when was my last show? Man, it's been so long. Maybe like October. I think I did 3 shows that year and I didn't do as well as I wanted to because I just looked so stringy from just all the dieting. And I was like, oh no, I look fine. I look great. But it's like, you look back at the pictures and the videos and I'm like, wow, like I really just kind of like did myself a disservice if I would have just taken that time off. But in hindsight, I wouldn't have been able to tell, like that they were going to close everything and nothing was going to open until so late in the year.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, that was such a hard time, I think, for a lot of athletes, but especially athletes like yourself who were really focused on qualifying and like progressing competitively. And even at the time, like 2019, I'm trying to think, Janet Leung, she won in 2020. Does that sound right?
Oh man,
Or
I
was
can't.
she 21? I forget because I know it was Jen. It was like, okay, I'm thinking back to like those milestones in bikini. It's like once the Angelica won, I remember being like, oh, like we get to bring muscle now. Like this is like a little bit more density. And then it was Jen and it was like, cool, okay, like a little bit more muscle and they're okay if the muscle's there, if it's like in a balanced way. And then I remember when Janet won, it was like, okay, they want full like visible tie-ins, like, but that's still a lot of muscle. And like with her being so tall too, I'm like, okay, like even for shorter competitors, we still have to bring that. And I know around that time, like for you, like being in that diet, like extended diet, it wears on you. And I mean, like I've been there myself, but can you walk myself and listeners through like what was the mindset? I mean, like were you, I obviously, like, I'm sure you probably struggled seeing how you actually looked like off stage and how it would translate on stage. But what were those like really big challenges for you as you were getting through that prep? I mean, like, even going into that first show, I'm sure you must have been just tired because of the amount of time that you spent dieting.
Honestly, it wasn't as bad, only because, everything was closed at that time. I lived in California during that year, and you couldn't even go to like the trail because I remember there was one day I went walking on a trail with my dog, and literally a helicopter came around saying like you need to leave and go back home and quarantine. I'm like, what? Like, who am I gonna? Like, but anyway, um, so I think it just kind of like actually prepping was good for my mental health during that time because I was like, oh, I'm just gonna wake up, I'm gonna do my bike, I'm gonna go run, I'm gonna go do I'm gonna do my workout, I'm gonna do my diet, and like it just kind of kept me structured. And I feel like if I didn't have that, I would have probably gone a little bit crazy of just like, oh, I don't know, what am I gonna do? Um, I'm a very hyper person. Like I always have to do something. Like I'm like, okay, what's next? What's this? What's that? So I feel like that kind of kept me grounded in a way because I was like, okay, like yeah, let's see what changes we can make, or let's see how hard we can go. So it helped me out, and I had blinders on, and I feel like a lot of us during like competing, we do have that where we think, oh, I am the greatest, I am the best, and like so during that time when I finally stepped on stage, I was like, oh, I don't understand why they're not placing me well. I feel like I look great. I work so hard. Like, and that's one thing that as competitors sometimes like unfortunately, like it doesn't, even if you work hard, doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have the right physique for the stage. So in my head, I was like, I've worked really hard. I've been sticking with everything. I feel like I look great. But it wasn't until later on, probably once I actually stepped into off season, that I look back at the pictures. So I'm like, yeah, I was small. So, and it's like one of those things, like even it always happens the way it takes me a little bit to just kind of like get the whole picture and be like, wow, like I needed to just fix this because this girl definitely had it. And I mean, I can be objective. I can look at pictures and be like, okay, yeah, this girl had this, and that, um, and be like, okay, cool. But then there was something, always during that phase where, you're working so hard, like you're like, okay, I had this, what's going on? And it took me a little bit. So luckily I had that for myself. And it wasn't until after that I was like, oh yeah, I need to grow.
I can definitely relate to that. Coming out of my 22 season, I mean, like I was set on getting as lean as I could. And like it wasn't until months after, even now, I look back and I see some of those pictures and I'm like, I have negative quads and hamstrings. Like I don't need to be worried about glute biasing anything. Like there's no muscle in my legs. Like they're very tiny. And like in that moment or in that prep, really the entirety was just like so focused on the stage and like really just finishing, that oftentimes I know for me, like I can definitely get lost in the conditioning aspect and really miss like the balance of it. And I know at the time, like you said, like coming out of that, it wasn't until a few months later that you were able to be like, okay, objectively, like I need some muscle. What did that transition after such a long season look like for you?
So after the last show, I would say it probably didn't take me like months to figure out that I need to grow. I think it took me until like the last show to just be like, okay, maybe we need to like, take a step back and grow a little bit, just take some time off the stage and stop prepping for a little bit and just focus on growing. So I went a little while and I'm like, I'm gonna grow everything. Maybe, competing, maybe we could just push it further aside. Let's just go crazy. And at that point, but I still wanted to diet down too. Like I still wanted to be lean, 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 which is, as we know, it's not attainable. But I was convinced that I could do it. And what I noticed was my hormones weren't 100%. Like my hair was starting to fall out. I was having like acne everywhere. My time of the month, I mean, I went probably like more than 3, 4 years without my time of the month. It would kind of come every once in a while, but after like the last like 2019 season, like I didn't have it at all. And I was like, ooh, maybe it's time for us to get this back. And I might just need to gain a little bit of weight. So I told myself, okay, from here on out, I'm not going to diet. I'm just going to increase my food, but I'm not going to do, X amount of cardio. And I'm going to make sure that I'm not tracking, I'm going to try to eat a little bit more so I can gain the weight and get my period back. And once I do that, I'm going to wait 3 months. And then after those 3 months, then I can start, dieting again. So along that time, during that time, I started like increasing my weight, and I could kind of see like, a little bit of weight increasing, but I was like, you know what, it's okay. And then I broke my foot, and that's where kind of everything just kind of was like, well, I couldn't, and it's funny because I was like, even though I was eating a good amount during, the time that I was trying to get my period back, I was still doing a lot of activity just because I really love just doing different things. But breaking my foot just kind of like held me back. I couldn't really obviously walk. I couldn't do anything. So I was like, okay, cool. So I guess this might be like a sign that I need to slow it down more because I still haven't gotten it. And it wasn't until I was what, like maybe like 125. And it wasn't until like I reached like 155 that my time of the month came back. And I was like, well, and then from there, it was like puffy and just like everything just, it wasn't me. And I would look back and I was like, oh, God, like, what have I done? But I was like, I needed this. And then I was like, no, I need to stick with it. I can't go back on a diet until 3 months after this. And then I waited and I was like, okay, it's time. I can go ahead and just slowly get back onto it. And then it was it took me a little while to get back to like the 130s, which is my like maintenance weight where I, can continue to have my time of the month and everything. I think it took me like a year, and it was a slow transition, but I was like, I need to be careful with this because I don't want to lose it again. And then after that, like, I'm glad I did everything how it went down, because after that, I was able to get my time of the month every month. Like my skin's clear, my hair stopped falling out, like everything just kind of like worked out really well. And I was like, okay, maybe and then at that point, I guess I realized that like maybe I shouldn't go back to competing at this time. I think that maybe I should just retire from bikini, just because like the amount of muscle that it required, the amount of I think it was more of like like the look that it had wasn't what I was envisioning myself getting, especially like how hard the girls were getting, and I knew like the amount of effort that I needed to get, like to put in to be able to get the glutes that they were asking. And that was like always my trouble area. So I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love how you painted that timeline. And I think, a lot of listeners can probably relate to seeing the scale weight going up and knowing that, like, okay, this isn't what I want to do, but this is what I need to do. Like, I need to be in a position where if I'm not going to be on stage and I'm not going to be actively competing, then I need to be in a position where at least I'm having that ovulatory cycle. And that's a big key component that I stress for athletes is like, hey, like if we're missing multiple periods and we're in season, like it's not healthy, but it is in a way expected. I would say it's more expected than if we're not in season. And if we're not in season and we're missing periods, that's something we need to take a closer look at. Like we can't even think about getting on stage or even starting a diet if you're not ovulating, because essentially how I break it down for individuals is it's almost like if you have strict parents growing up who like you either have like parents who are like, oh, like you get a B minus on an exam, they take your keys away, you're grounded, or you have parents who are like, you come home drunk and like you were partying all night and they're like, hey, just don't do it again. That's essentially your HPA access, like deciding, okay, this is the point in which we're going to revoke the right for reproductive function. And oftentimes people will think, well, like, okay, well, that won't happen to me. If I do it slowly or if I do it strategically, I can avoid this. But it's like there absolutely is a threshold for each individual person in which their homeostatic parents are like, no, like I don't trust you to conceive at this point. Like you need to support yourself and take care of yourself better. And I think in the case where you were able to like commit to that, I think that's so it's so amazing. It's very brave of you considering you already had so much success on stage, which I think people can, oversimplify and be like, well, yeah, but health first. It's like, but at that time, like there still is a lot of pressure to stay on stage and stay in the mix. And especially when you know that like, hey, like I see an increase in business when I am lean, when I'm posting these pictures, when I'm posting content. Whereas, I mean, like that is just the reality of social media. And with a platform like yours, it's like there are going to be people that are there for, what's superficial and what's exciting and what sells and what's sexy. And then those same people can see like, okay, well, this person's gaining weight, I'm going to dip out. And I know having dealt with that myself, like people feeling like, okay, there's an expectation to be in the mix and to get back on stage and, or at least at a very minimum to be close to stage ready. And the fact that you're able to say like, no, I need to do this for me. Like I need to stop these symptoms that I don't want to continue. I guess really at the time, were you and your husband, were y'all at all planning a family, or was that a part of the discussion?
No, it wasn't. I think it was more, I mean, my husband has always been like super supportive with my whole bodybuilding career and everything that I've ever wanted to do. He was always supportive. I mean, he's there at every show, like, fixing my hair, like, making sure that I'm perfect. Like he stresses when I'm at the shows. I don't stress. He's like, no, no, let's go here, let's go there. Where's your bag? But anyway, no, I think at that moment in time, we still weren't thinking of kids. We are like, okay, we need a little bit more time. He was in medical school, and I think I was just doing it more for myself because I knew that if I did want to have kids, I needed to get this fixed. Um, so it was one of those things that I was like I can't continue to do this because I know that I don't know what effects it's gonna have. Like, yes, I see a lot of competitors that have kids, but then I also have seen a lot of people with issues with having kids. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be a statistic. I want to make sure that I'm healthy and I'm at the best. Because what I want to always show is being healthy and, promote, you know, exercise and promote eating well and promote this and that. And I believe that for myself, like that was just part of it. And I think what really helped, because I know that like you mentioned how, it could affect your business and everything. And that was really in the back of my head. I was like, oh my God, like how am I going to get business if I, especially once I did get to the weight, I was like, oh my God, like would I hire myself? Like, but honestly, like business still kept coming in. And it was because I was still consistent posting. And I was kind of sharing the story of like, this is why I'm doing this and this is what this is. And once I started actually leaning out from like that 150 back down, like even more business started to come in too. And I was like, okay, awesome. Like, people, yes, they love my physique and they like me shredded, but at the same time, they still appreciate my physique even whenever I'm not that lean. I mean, once again, and I do have, how do I say? I mean, been building my physique for a very long time, so it is going to look a certain way, as yours is going to be even at the 150s. Whenever you were there, like you still looked so good. Um, where it's like, once again, as I say, like we're still at that 1%. Like not many people like look the way that we do, whether we're on stage or not. So
No, and I appreciate you hitting on that because I think that's so important for individuals who are very scale focused and understandably, I've been there. I imagine you've been there too, where it's like you see those fluctuations and you start to think of the worst. And I know for me, like I would very much catastrophize, and seeing those fluctuations when I was in off season, it was like I had this belief that like I couldn't continue to gain. Like there is a threshold in which I'm like, I don't want to go past this. And truly, building enough muscle to where like those higher weights didn't become as scary. Like at one point, I know like 140 for me, I'm like, that's too heavy. That's 20 pounds above. Like I need to reel it in. And to be fair, it's like 140 looked a lot different in 2016 than it did last year. So I think, that's important for listeners to understand is that like in order to not have this limited range of like physique that feels good and feels comfortable and they're proud of, that can be unlocked if you gain a little bit more muscle because more body fat might look differently. And we see this with top athletes now. It's like the ones that are very dense, even at their heaviest. Like I think Laura Lee is a great example of this. Like even at peak, she looks incredible. And like, yes, her body fat, you could say it's like, no, it's not stage lean. And like, thank God it's not because like, I think that's what's allowed her to be successful, but she still carries that weight so well. And I think a lot of that has to do with putting in the time and the years, building that density. So I'm glad the conversation kind of like, spiraled here. I guess when we start talking about, really that transition, like, because you'd mentioned like it did take you a bit to come down from the 155. And for listeners who aren't familiar, how tall are you?
I'm 5'5",
5'5".
so
Okay.
around the
So
same height as you.
yeah, no, and I don't know about you, but like I shrink when I diet. Like at 120, I swear to God, I'm 5'3". And then at 150, I'm like just over 5'4". And it's like, I swear I store fat in my feet. Uh, but anyways, coming down from that 155, I'm sure you have clients who or individuals who you speak with who would be in that same position and they would just want to turn it into a prep. They would just want to get back on stage. What was the decision like for you to not necessarily go directly back to stage, but just give yourself the space to let weight come down?
I think that what I kind of like redirected, so I did have like an identity crisis after that. Like, after I started, gaining the weight and everything. And then after I decided, okay, maybe I shouldn't go back to competing just yet. Like, if I do, maybe a couple of years from now. Um, and I did have an identity crisis in that moment because I was like, okay, bodybuilding is my world. What do I do now? Like, am I just a regular fitness person in this space? Like, I don't know how to function in here. So I started just looking at other outlets. So I started looking at like hiking and cycling and any kind of sport that you can think of. I started trying. I'm like, okay, well, let's try this out. Like, I at one point I even started like training for a triathlon. I'm like, oh, I bought the bike and everything. Never did it. I forgot what happened. I think I hurt something. So, and I was like, okay, well, but I think a lot of it was just redirecting my my focus and then just try new things and just kind of like rebranding myself as like, oh, I'm a hybrid athlete. I'm gonna run and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And and it kind of gave me an opening to things that I wasn't able to do when I was competing. Because when we compete, we're kind of like, yeah, cool. Yeah, we're gonna go here today, but you know what? I gotta go to the gym, so I'm not gonna make it, and I don't want to get hurt. And I remember there's so many different things that I didn't allow myself to do because I had such a strict schedule of things that I wanted to reach, that being able to focus on something else just kind of it just kind of opened up a whole new world. And I was, even now I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I can go surfing, I can go do this, I can go do that, and just so many new things that I was able to try. Even like, I lived in California for 4 years and literally had the mountains an hour away to go snowboarding. Never did I snowboard because I was afraid of like falling and hurting myself and not being able to compete. So after that, I went snowboarding for the first time. I'm like, man, I really missed out. Like, and it was when we were moving back to Florida, and I'm like, God dang it, like, I can't do this now. But a lot of it has just been like redirecting, and for my clients, like the ones that I want to like compete right away, and they're like, oh, I've gained this, and I'm like, it just let's just take it step by step, and because what's going to happen is you're just going to look really skinny if we try to hurry this up, and you're not going to look good, unfortunately. And especially before fit model came into the picture, like I'm like, there's like, unless you have that muscle density behind it, because these girls at the amateur level, they're looking fantastic, like they look so good. um you have to have that foundation, but if you rush through it, you're just gonna waste your time going. So you have to take it slow to get there.
No, I think that's a really good segue. And I love that too. You were able to find enjoyment with physical activity in a physique that you were feeling more and more comfortable in, that had nothing to do with how skinny you looked or how lean you looked or your body fat percentage. And truly, I had spurts of this like intermittently in my bodybuilding career, but it's something that I feel like if you can take the emphasis away exclusively from how you look, you can find almost that like happy medium where it's like, yes, like I can do impressive things with the physique in the aesthetics of it. And that's really cool. Like, that's like a fun science project. Yeah. But my body can also function and I can do really cool things. And for me, even last year during my build, as I was gaining weight, like I really was falling in love with the performance aspect and being able to get stronger. And I mean, I do think that some individuals, like they kind of white knuckle and hyperfixate on the aesthetics of it. And it's like, to an extent, yes, you have to, but also being able to recognize like, when is this unhealthy? Like, when are you just indulging in being critical? Because it's like we can all find things that we wish were a little bit different or wish came a little bit easier or happened faster. But I love that you kind of painted that for clients too. And I do the same thing where it's like if someone's like, hey, I'm ready to get on stage, honestly, it's just the look. I don't think I turned pro in 2021. I think I would have a very tough time turning pro now. And like I just say that like I had small glutes then. Like I just got really lean. But the current level at the national level that these girls are bringing, like I feel for my amateur competitors, I'm like, these are more developed than the pro level in 21 and 22. So I think that's something for amateurs to consider is too, is like it's not something you can really expedite, whether you use supplements or not. Even that, I mean, it comes with a cost, and it's something that, frankly, a lot of people, even with assistance, aren't going to be able to just rush the process. It's still going to take a lot of time. And I love that for clients now that they have this option where they can consider maybe they want to get on stage and they want to do the fitness thing, the competitor thing, but they're not locked into the current standard bikini look. Now they have the fit metal division, which still, like, I mean, those winners, like, I mean, that's still not an easy look. A lot of them are very structurally blessed, but they're very lean. They just have much less muscle, and it's very reminiscent of that 2015 bikini look, in my opinion.
No, and 100%. And as you said, like, I mean, if I would have even tried, I don't even think I like with the physique that I won my pro card with, I don't even think I would place at the amateur level, like at a local show, like just how small I was. Um, and even like my last physique in 2020, I feel like even maybe could have made it to a national show, but I think I would have struggled to get there. These girls are bringing in amazing physiques, and as you mentioned, I think yes, these girls with the fit model, they're looking good, but I feel like it's going to be something that if you have the right one structure, which it comes down to like any bodybuilding like division, and the right work ethic behind it, and it'll be a lot easier for a lot more girls to be able to compete, still do well, and have that possibility of turning pro, get to the Olympia and everything else too. But once again, I'm very very happy that they actually added it in, because I'm like looking at some of my clients and I'm like they're wanting to compete, and I'm like it's probably going to take us like 3 years for us to get here, if that. Like it's just going to take a while. And with with the fit model, like if you just kind of give it a bit of time, depending on where you start, you can get there in a year. Just how it was. I mean, I was very very good as a coach back then, whenever like the physique was like that between 2015, 2019, 2018, like when the girls weren't as big. And I mean, every single girl that I coached was getting top two placements, and it was just like, you know, and they weren't having to do 2 years of off season or anything like that to gain. They were doing maybe like 6 months a year, and then leaning out, and then they were looking, had the right posing, which is really important, as you know. Um, and they were doing so well, but then like once like things just kind of turned, like it's been tough. It's been tough getting these girls up on stage.
No, like once it took off, like it really took off, and that's the thing. I think the physique at one point was very much attainable in under a year, and I think with the right structure and a little bit of athletic background, like you could take someone and if they could apply themselves, like they could do seemingly very well and turn pro relatively quickly. But I think right now I ran into very similar conversations where clients who didn't necessarily have bad structure and weren't untrained. It was just the fact it was like, hey, I want to be honest with you that like you will be competing in a non-tested organization. I want you to be happy with the decisions we make, but I also want to safeguard your expectations, because the muscle that you would need, regardless of decision making, we still need to understand like it's probably going to take way more time than you imagine, and it's probably going to take you getting a little bit uncomfortable in those off seasons because of the length of time that you're spending not on stage. And I feel like when the fit model division came out, I mean, I was like recording videos, and like I had everything all planned, and then I told Emily, I was like, yo, like I want to record a segment on this because like I think it's really positive, and I think it kind of again safeguards the entry level bikini look that once was, but just frankly isn't that anymore. And it's not like they can turn back the clocks. Like, I mean, like now you have top athletes, and frankly, I love the look. I remember in 2015, like my second show, they were like, quads are a little big. I was 19. Like I was a teeny little thing. Like I was a child and I was way too skinny. But I remember hearing that, and then it like, fragmenting like my identity around training. I'm like, I can't train legs. There are no leg extensions and no squats to ever be done in my programming. So it's kind of nice that individuals who do like training heavy and like putting on muscle, they have a place to go. But we're not pigeonholing all female fitness athletes into that category.
100%. And I've actually even seen a lot of like bikini competitors that are wanting to switch over to the fit model division ones, you know, the pro girls that are wanting to switch over to it. So I'm like, okay, so it seems like a lot of these girls are also want, you know, like, is this, you know, and it's, and I've seen some girls have even like placed like top two in their pro shows, and they're like wanting to like step, you know, to a lower level. And it's just like one of those things, like it's just taking so much to like work up, and they're like, I can't get any bigger. Like this is kind of like my, where my body is, and you know, I can't get it anymore. But yeah, no, I mean, and other girls have, I mean, girls right now in the bikini, they look so good. Like I'm like, you guys are amazing. But as you said, I'm just really happy that they've added in this new category. And I think it's funny, like some girls have been like, I've, I've been on TikTok, and it's like girls that are in the amateur level. It's like, oh, I can't believe they're adding this. They just don't want any muscle. I'm like, girl, you don't even fit in bikini. What do you mean? Like,
Yeah, this
so,
division is for you. Like, lean down. I promise you don't have as much muscle as you think you do. And like that is also directed at me because I was that athlete who thought I was very muscular until I got lean for the first time. And I'm like, okay, ego check. Like, not much muscle under there, not what I thought. And no, it is very interesting that a lot of pros even are considering. Like, I know Laura Shaymore. She is, I hate to misspeak, I believe she's 5'9". She's very tall, and this is something that she's been very open about on her podcast, expressing that like for her to fill out her frame to be as dense. I mean, like that's a big commitment, and she's already spent many years as a pro, and she's done like seemingly well at the pro level. But she's like, to continue to look as dense, like that's a very big look. And I definitely like I can put myself in not necessarily her shoes, but like being shorter, I'm like, okay, if they were to give me feedback that they want a bigger upper body, that's not necessarily something I want to do. Like that is kind of a line in the sand for me because like I have broad clavicles, like I've developed delts, and like I have a pretty big back. So it's like when I was telling a client yesterday, I'm like, when I go on dates, like if I like Jordan and I, if we're out and I'm wearing like a strappy like top or a dress, like there is still that aspect of me that's like a little like I feel very top heavy. And even though yes, it's more balanced than it used to be, I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily want that bigger. And I think that's important for listeners to, just like with all decisions around competing, is to understand like you have to live in your physique. So you have to live in that physique when you're stage lean and when you're in off season. And that kind of circles back to like even like the wellness division, because in 2020, that was when I got back into competing. And my first show, I did wellness and bikini in the same show. And I actually won the overall in wellness at 133 pounds. Like, thank God it was at like a hookah bar. It was so dark. Like, I don't even think they could see me. I'm pretty sure that's like part of the decision here. But I truly, I was like, I'm not, like, there's no way. I'm not wellness. I don't have quads. It was just largely like, it was still a developing division. But I digress. I know I've had judges tell me, like, oh, like, you could do really well in that. And I'm like, the consideration around being in a division that requires more muscularity than bikini, especially at the pro level, is that I have to be comfortable when I am 20% body fat or even higher, because that is weight I'm going to carry around. And that's weight like I want to, I guess I don't want to, I guess corner myself into a physique that is hard for me to appreciate or is not something that I really love. And it's within the wellness division. Those girls, like, I am glad that they have a realm that they can compete in as well. But I think it's important for listeners to be able to like kind of discern even bikini division and know that like that can be a look that like whatever you compete at, you probably are going to be living 15 pounds above that stage weight. So if that is 150, or in the case of like Laura's case, like if that is like closer to like 170, that can be a lot of mass. And if that's not what you want, it doesn't mean that fit model is like lesser or even like that it's like an easier division. It just has a different requirements, which I know I'm going to say that. I feel like people will be like, come on, it is easier. And yes, it's less muscle, but it's also like intentionally less muscle.
yeah, and then also it's gonna look different once you put like the weight on it as well. So, and as you said, like just living in that, like whenever I was like before I broke my foot and everything, you know, my arms had gotten like, you know, pretty large, and I was actually happy with them because I was like, oh, I look so good, like, you know, but I was like, what, like walking around like 125, and I was like, once I gained the weight, like all the fat kind of like gained around there, and I was like, oh my God, like, and it's funny because it didn't have that much fat in it, but it was just kind of like there was just so much muscle underneath that it just made it look bigger. And that was one of the things that I really struggled with for a while during, like, my lifestyle phase, where I was like, crap, like I can't wear a dress because it just looks like bulgy. And I don't feel happy with this at all. Like, when I'm lean, it looks great. Like it looks fantastic. I look so muscular, but like being just a regular weight, like it just doesn't look as good. So, and that's where I kind of made the transition of like, okay, I'm just gonna bring down my arms and like just bring down the density that I have in there so I could feel more comfortable and more feminine with my physique. Um, and from there I was like, okay, it's like one of those things, as you said, like it's so important to know like what it's gonna feel like to actually have that weight on. Because it's, in theory, you're like, oh yes, 20 pounds, what is that? But it's like, it's not all going to just go on your glutes, unfortunately.
No.
So,
And I'll even say, like, I'm 145 now, so I'm down like 7 pounds. Like, it's a good amount down, but I'm like, girl, walking in heels at 145 is not the same as 125. Like, you got more mass. Like, you're just very, yeah, you just need more control, more stability. I'm working on it. But I think this is a really good opportunity to kind of segue into where you are now, because something that I really appreciate for any expecting moms or individuals who plan to start a family here in the near future down the road is that you are showcasing your physique. You're being so vulnerable with what this pregnancy has been like for you, and specifically how that translates into body image. Can you share with myself and listeners just like what that's been like, really the inception of seeing your body change as you've, been carrying your baby. Oh, that's so exciting.
so it's been amazing, honestly. And I think that posting these updates has been actually like really great for me, just because I've been able to see like the changes, and I've been able to keep myself accountable in terms of like, just eating healthy and not like overindulging, which I feel like a lot of the times is what I see a lot of pregnant girls do. They just kind of go and they're like, oh, it's okay. I'm just pregnant. So I need to go ahead and just have McDonald's again today. And they'll, all they eat is fast food. And, you know, I felt like my pregnancy has been going, I don't want to say it's easy because I don't want to sound like that insufferable pregnant lady, but it's just been more of like, just keeping myself accountable and just kind of like listening to my body and just kind of like, when you compete, you really learn your body. So you know what affects what. So for me, like, constipation, nausea, like certain things, like I can look back at my competing years and be like, oh, okay, that's because of this, or that. Like, oh, I'm having a headache. Maybe it's because something that I ate, or I'm not eating enough, or, like there's so many, it's crazy how many, like how close it is to competing in certain ways, and how you can, how do I say it? How you can tell, like, if you're in sync with your body. I mean, obviously, it's my first pregnancy, and this is the one pregnancy I've had. I haven't had others, but it's made it so much easier throughout that. Um, but in terms of body image, sorry, let me just roll back around because I just started like spitting words. Yeah, I think that what I decided from the very beginning was, we're just gonna go with the flow. However much weight I gain, I gain. I've seen girls, they gain 50, 70, 80, 90 pounds. Some gained 5 pounds throughout their pregnancy. And I told myself, like, I don't know this. I don't know what my body is capable of. So we're just going to take it day by day. We're going to do the best that we can. We're going to do, we're going to make goals that are achievable and attainable. Like for working out, I'm like, okay, 4 days a week. That's what if I do more, great. If I do a little bit less, that's okay. Walking, I'm going to try to hit, 30-minute walk 5 days a week. If I do more, amazing. If I can't make it because I'm tired, then that's okay. So I think everything throughout this process, it hasn't been like that hard, because it hasn't been like, competing where you're like, oh, I have to do everything, everything has to be perfect. But with this, I'm like, I'm giving myself grace, but at the same time, I'm like, just going with the flow and just seeing what my body is capable of, if that makes sense.
Totally, totally. And I love that. And I actually think there's methods in which, like, if someone were to approach competing or really any kind of like just stark goal that way, where it's like it's not necessarily about the due date or the show date. It's rather about like I need to take care of myself daily. In your case, like I need to give my child what they need to develop, and I need to take care of myself so that I am able to have this delivery successfully in a healthy way. And I think like that takes a lot of maturity, and it also takes the ability to be present and be very honest, and not just hyperfixate on like, well, the weight has come on, or like, is this fat, or is this needed, or am I eating a little bit too much? It sounds like you're very in tune and not as rigid. And I mean that as a compliment, because I do think that a lot of people can feel like they need to fit themselves in both competing and pregnancy. They need to fit themselves into the definition of how it looks for other people. And I don't have any kids, but my sister's gone through IVF 3 times with 3 successful pregnancies. And I can tell you, like, getting to experience that as her sister, like, it's been incredible to see that, like, some things like are a little easier and some things are a little harder. And as much as you'd love to have control over that outcome, you kind of just have to trust your body and, like you said, see what it can do. Because I think it's incredible. Like the fact, and I tell my sister this, she has, by the way, she has a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and now like a 1 month old. And I tell her, like I told her this last week, I'm like, I can't wrap my adult brain, my 30-year-old brain around the fact that you have 3 children. Like you created them, like you were a kid making factory. Like it's just like there's so much love I have for her and so much pride I have in the fact, like, wow, like she made life. And like I just, I don't know. As someone who's a non-parent, I think I'm just like fascinated by that idea of like you can literally like bring a child into this earth, and you can do so just with your body. Like that's incredible. So I'm super stoked for you. And I mean, like, hopefully things continue to run as smoothly as they have. I know that, I've kept you for a good amount of time, and I'm so happy where this conversation like developed. But I want to give listeners an outlet if they do want to work with you, if they want to just follow your journey, because you're just so vulnerable and so giving online. Where can people find you?
So you guys can find me on Instagram or TikTok at the Ab Chick. Um, and yeah, so I always, always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or anything as well. Like I'm pretty good at actually replying back to my followers if if I see the messages. Because at the end of the day, like we all start somewhere. And my goal at the end of this pregnancy is, and something that I've already been doing before, is help out a lot of the girls that are in postpartum and getting them into their best physiques after they deliver the baby. Because honestly, it's doable. I've done it so many times with so many different clients, and like just the way that their body shifts afterwards is amazing. And then same thing as the girls that are trying to get from, start their pregnancy. Like if you get into your best physique before pregnancy, honestly, like your pregnancy is gonna go by so smooth. It's if you get to that point where you're like, I feel really good, I feel really happy with this, like you get pregnant, you're gonna have smooth sailing because you already have the diet pretty much down. You already, you have the good habits. Same thing with your training. You already have the good habits in your training. You just kind of have to keep up, moderately, and then you'll be fine. And then after that, you get postpartum and you bounce back really fast. So we'll see how my postpartum goes, but that's what I'm hoping for.
No, fingers crossed. But I do completely agree. It's like knowledge is power, even though that's very much an overused phrase. I feel like when you understand like why certain things are occurring, like what you mentioned with like the headaches, the constipation, nausea, like when you can make sense of it, you can be autonomous. You can have agency over how to correct some of these symptoms, or at least support them or mitigate them. But I'm excited to continue following you and sharing your content with clients who are in that phase of life. So, Steph, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, listeners. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, thank you guys for watching, for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.